Charles Chuck Shipman was a surfer and canoe paddler who became well established in ocean recreation in Hawaii beginning in the 1960s. Shipman was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1943, but was raised in Kaimuki primarily by his grandmother, Mary Freitas. He graduated from St. Louis High School and later attended Santa Barbara City College and the University of Hawaii. In 1965, he was invited to the World Surfing Championships in Peru, where he eventually stayed for more than a year, fixing surfboards, traveling, and adventuring. In the 1970s and 80s, he worked with the City and County of Honolulu Department of Parks and Recreation and was tasked with creating the Ocean Recreation Program to help teach Hawaii's youth how to swim, bodyboard, snorkel, surf, sail, and paddle a canoe. During his time in Hawaii, Shipman left his mark on ocean activities in a host of other ways as well. He, along with his uncle George Freitas, launched Ali'i Surfboards with former roommate and famous surfer Paul Strauch at an abandoned warehouse near the current location of Ala Moana Center. Ali'i Surfboards became a well-known gathering spot for surfers, and it likely was around this time when he developed a deep passion for the ocean. Shipman was also an advisor and competition director for the Duke Kahanamoku Surfing Classic. In partnership with the Polynesian Voyaging Society and Ocean Recreation, and because of a fascination with Polynesian voyaging, Shipman held workshops teaching people how to use canoes. He had served as an advisor to the Society's board. Later in life, Shipman started a real estate appraisal firm and tech company.
Welcome to the celebration for Chuck Shipman. My name is Gusty Cobb Adams. If you guys don't know me, I'm Chuck Shipman's Hanai son. I'm Dave's good friend, Tayo's good friend. My job is to keep you guys on track with this celebration of life. Today is a good, fun day. The sun is shining, the wind is blowing. It's gonna be a beautiful, beautiful day, and it's a great day to remember my Hanai dad, Pop Shipman. We're gonna have some speakers come up, share their remembrances. I just wanted to kick it off with a short story that I have. But a long time ago, picture it, a strikingly young, beautiful, beautiful Hawaiian boy hooks up with his good friend, Dave Shipman, and he's like, hey, you need to come out to my house. We're gonna go jump in the water. And when he said jump in the water, I'm like, yeah, we'll go jump in the water. Of course, I come out here and the waves is exponentially bigger than in my home in Kailua. So I'm looking around going, wow, these waves is kind of big. I'm just a pretty face. I'm in 4th grade and I walk through the door and there's Pop Shipman right there. He's like, hey, you look like a big, strong young man. And I'm like, well, yes I am. That's good because we gotta go pick rocks. We gotta pick rocks Like, rocks? Yeah, we're gonna pick up rocks and we're gonna move them to the other side. Like rocks? So, yeah. Don't worry. We're just gonna pick up rocks and we're gonna move it to the other side. And I was like, okay. He's like, after this, you're gonna be a pilot. Well, a pilot? You're gonna be a pilot after this. You can go work for any airline in the industry. All you gotta do is walk through the front door and say, I'm a pilot. I pick up the rocks over there and I pilot over there. But through these stories, I felt at home. And anytime I come to Tayo's house, it felt like home. Mom was there, Dad was there, Leah was there, and it felt like home. So today, it's a celebration. We welcome each and every one of you guys to come up, share your stories of aloha. With that said, I'd like to bring up Chuck's oldest daughter. By the way, his only daughter, Leah. Youngest daughter to the stage, Leah.
Thank you everyone for joining us here today to honor my father, Chuck Shipman. Dad was an adventurer, storyteller, and philosopher. The stories you will hear from people speaking today will underscore these attributes and probably make you laugh some too. While we want to honor my dad, I don't want to really turn this into a Chuck roast because he's really, he acted in his life with such kindness and good intentions to some very interesting misadventures, but always adventures. There's so many stories to share, and that's really because my dad was this very unconventional, free thinker, as my brother Tayo had described to me. He's one of the world's greatest free thinkers, and he's also the most well-read person I have ever known, always exploring vast collections of stories and concepts across a plethora of subjects, all extremely interesting and all at the forefront of modern thinking for each era of his life. His passion for all aspects of ocean recreation and ensuring that the youth of Hawaii, especially disadvantaged youth, had access to the knowledge and gear to help them learn to ride waves, dive deep into the ocean blue, and sail in the wind of Hawaii. These all had real, measurable impacts on all our lives and for generations of young people who have benefited from the knowledge that he's passed on over the last 40 years. His persistence, his perseverance are traits that I can see in my son, Rafa, as is his sense of exploration and adventure. Being Chuck's daughter meant that every day was always an adventure. If we weren't going on some crazy trek across the valley through well-established marijuana patches with gun-toting guardians in search of old-growth how to drag back down the trail and soak in salt water before stripping the bark and preparing it for some canoe part, we were sailing down the coast with one of his prototype sails in his double-hulled canoe, swimming so fast across the sea that we would break all the wooden paddles. And I was scared that we weren't able to steer the double-hull canoe back into the harbor at Haleiwa, and we would zoom right past Kaihana Point into parts unknown. I think I might have been 7 at the time and horrified at some of, I don't know how we all just didn't die with some of the rigs that my dad put together. Many of you know the story of how the master navigator, Mau Piailug, befriended my father and established a wayfinding school in front of our house here at Sunset Beach. I was just a little girl, but I recall lying on the beach staring up at the sky as Dad, using a high beam flashlight, pointed out the stars and constellations we would need to know to help us navigate to Uncle Mau's island of Satawal. Because yes, every 8-year-old girl needs to learn how to navigate across the Pacific to Micronesia. And he would tell the best stories about the constellations, the Hawaiian stories, the Greek stories, all of these stories about the stars. And to this day, Jack Johnson's song, Constellations, captures exactly the experiences and sentiments. And we would learn about all the constellations and tell stories of far-flung places as we wondered about the mysteries of the universe. Halley's Comet huge highlight of the year. That was not to be missed. Every night it was in the sky above our island. Solar eclipse, we spent it at an ancient navigational heiau on the Big Island with our friend Ivo Hansa, who lent us his car that could barely crawl with all the gear that we had shipped over to help with our adventure. As children, during the summer ocean recreation days, my brother and I were Dad's trusty helpers, much like Gus described. The back of the van was filled with soft top surfboards, boogie boards, trash cans full of dive gear, life vests, and we were towing a double hull canoe, of course, all around the island to beach parks where we would help teach children how to use all that equipment. These experiences, though, taught my brother and me about hard work, leadership, and safety, and about working for the city and county of Honolulu, like many of you all here today. I'm not sure if you know that Dad had a long-standing relationship with Jermaine's Luau, and also Paradise Cove Luau. We grew up in a family with 7 canoes, and they were all being used on movie sets, or on luau's, or in our backyard. Some are still in our backyard. And with Jermaine's Luau, my dad was the opening act for 15 years. Dad would change into his red Hawaiian short shorts, and he would dip a torch in kerosene, light it, and then push his outrigger canoe into the water, paddling out through the surf before turning around and catching a wave right up to the beach through 2 narrow coral heads, surfing up to the beach, hopping out of the canoe, and running down the beach, lighting the torches and making all the tourists swoon. So now it's nighttime, right? We didn't get home till like 9 o'clock. But on the way through all the pineapple fields, we would play Star Wars. And Tayo was Han Solo, and I was Princess Leia, and I'm pretty sure my dad was Chewbacca. He was a really great dad. I just am so grateful for everyone that has come today, and for everyone that is going to speak today. I did want to share my thanks to the lifeguards, the North Shore lifeguards, because my father went on some truly hairy adventures, always going on the cutting edge of whatever water sports was happening. And like Derek Dorner has really fun stories of my dad getting caught inside at sunset on his windsurfer where Derek thought he was just gonna get donuts. And there he was, hauling up the sail, fixing his glasses in face of a 15-foot wave, and then all of a sudden, Derek's like, I'm gonna have to go rescue this guy. And then Derek is like, this puff of wind would fill his sail, and he would just shoot up the face of the wave, out of harm's way. It's unbelievable. But other times my dad wasn't so lucky. Like the time he may have gotten caught with his kite when he was learning how to kite in a tree. And the lifeguards had to go and rescue him. But the fact was, he was persistent. If he didn't know how to do something, he would figure it out. And those are traits that are instilled in my brother and our children today. So as I conclude my remarks, just one parting passage, sort of back to looking at the mysteries of the universe, that gives me solace in my grief at having lost one of the most loved and remarkable people in my life. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest nights, those are the stars that guide us. And as we live our days, these are the way we remember. So thank you again, everyone, for making the time to join us today as we celebrate my father.
Good morning, everybody. I am not organized, and I don't have a speech prepared, but I just want to really thank everybody for coming out, and thank all the people that are carrying on the tradition of being ocean, teaching the kids to find that adventure in the ocean. And I think for him, that's the most important thing. And with that, where's Auntie Myra? You want to come up?
This is our support system.
Yeah. We, Jerry and I and Reno Avalera worked with Chuck when he first started Ocean Recreation. So we were part of his team. Chuck was really good. He was good in, especially canoe sailing. He was an expert. Jerry was really good at it. I was terrible. But I was just part of the team. We spent a lot of time at the house with Phyllis and Chuck and Leah and everybody. And I enjoyed him because he worked for Ocean Recreation for the city and county parks department, and he was our boss.
He was Ocean Recreation.
Yeah. Every winter, we would come out here, my mom, my dad, my brothers, and myself, and we would spend time with Chuck and Phyllis, and and just had fun with him. And then he formed the Ocean Recreation section at Parks and Rec, and Jerry and I.
We tried to take it over.
And he always made sure that his staff knew what was going on, which was Jerry and I and Reno, and I don't know. I just had fun with your dad, and he was a great human being.
Thank you, Auntie Myra. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was a famous championship in Peru. The Hawaiian guys used to go. And then one day, there was one guy, Shipman, was there. The Hawaiian guys, after the contest, would back come home again. But he stayed. And then we hear the young men say, hey, there's one Hawaiian guy that he's fixing surfboards, dings and so forth. In fact, he has fixed one surfboard that it was broken in two. To ask that guy, well, something else. He can put a surfboard together. Wow, that's something else. Anyway, that was Chuck. The surfboard comes a little heavy, of course. And I don't remember when or how I met him, but he was there. And then somehow he came to our house, stayed with our house. His mother's name is Freitas, so he's Portuguese. And connected with my mother in the Spanish side. So my mother loved him. Chuck may come home. So he stayed at my house. And of course, from my house, he travels all over Peru. Sometimes disappears for weeks, months, come back. He absorbed the culture. Learned the Spanish good. I remember he would come with a poncho and a hat. All Peruvian ready. And just wonderful times. Anyway, to finish up, there is a famous place in Peru called Chicama. The surfer guys appreciate that. It's a nice long left with offshore wind year round. In one of those trips that Chuck would come from Hawaii to Peru, on the return trip from Peru to Hawaii, there was an opening in the clouds. He had looked down, and he has seen a left with offshore wind. Surfer guys, they check that right away. And he tells us, hey, brother, I have seen a left with offshore wind. Somewhere, and he took the coordinate with the pilot, somewhere a few hours from here. Anyway, us guys were happy with surfing around Lima. Years passed by, and one day we decided, he has told us, but he was animal. I said, good left, I seen it, a long one. Okay. Eventually, we landed in a place, and it was a nice wave. In fact, I was a young man, but when I saw that wave, I said, man, this is history. This wave is going to be known. And I suppose now surfer guys come from all over to surf. Thanks to Chuck. For a few seconds, whatever, he saw it, and the rest is history. Anyway, he got a Volkswagen, a yellow Volkswagen, right here by the beach, of course, all rusty. And on that Volkswagen, he put the canoe 15 feet, plus the rigging. And of course, on the back of the car, all chunks. fake pero you know, you wanna work for Parks and Recreation, you have to have wreck or something. Fake is all over the place, man, along with life jacket. Anyway, those are the memories I have of Shipman. I'm grateful to be here and important. This is my hope. I will see him again. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out. Chuck was many things. He was, most of all, he was very generous. And the way I know that is I had come to Hawaii the first time in 1969. I knew nobody. I was completely jet lagged. I got off the airplane, I rented a car, I went to Ala Moana, and I'm watching this sailboat end up on the rocks because it was a huge day. And I hear somebody call my name, and it was one of my friends from Peru. And so we start talking, what are you guys doing here? So he introduces me to Chuck. Chuck came out of the water. He introduced me to Chuck. Chuck talked to me for 5 minutes. Oh, you're from Peru? Yeah. Why don't you come stay with us? So, you know, that was really something for him to invite somebody he didn't even know. So I was impressed with that. And then he helped us a lot. He found us a place over here on the North Shore to rent, a group of us. And then with Evo, a year later, Evo and I were living in a glassing room in the daytime and our bedroom at night. So you can imagine what that looked like. So one day, Chuck shows up and Chuck says, hey, I just bought this property. Why don't you guys come over here and we'll trade rent for work? Sure, what could be wrong with that? So we went over there, and there was that house, and that house was put up on 50-gallon drums with nothing around it and a ladder to go up. So we lived in that house, Eve and I, we lived in that house for about a year. And then Chuck and Phyllis would come out on weekends and bring us food, which we gobbled up in about 2 days. Chuck is Chuck, and the North Shore is better off for having him around. Thank you.
Alan. Thank you. My name is Alan also, and I'm part of the, I retired from the City and County Parks Department, was hired by Chuck to work in ocean recreation many, many years ago. And Chuck was a visionary whose brain ran at full speed all the time, and he always was juggling different projects going on at once. A story about his kids rather than Chuck. So one day Chuck called me up and said, oh, Alan, can you take my kids to get their physical exam? Because they won't be let into school if they don't have this exam done today. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll be glad to do that. So I pick up Leah and David Tile, and we go to Kaiser Clinic, which used to be by the Ilikai then. And we go in there and we meet with the nurse. And they're going to have their eye exam. So Leah goes up first, and the nurse pulls out the chart and says, can you read this letter? And Leah gives a letter. Okay, goes down to the lower line. Can you read this letter? She goes all through the things, and Leah can read all the letters. Now it's David Tile's turn. And he goes up there. The nurse goes, can you read this letter? And he goes, no. No. Can you read this one? No. So she goes to the next bigger letter. Can you read this one? No. And she goes to the biggest letter. Can you read this one? No. And Leah goes, he's only 5. He doesn't know how to read. I turned to Leah, I go, is this a comedy skit going on here or not? But whether you were with Chuck or you were with his kids, there's never a dull moment.
It's Tom Wallace.
From Maryland.
Thank you.
I was working with Chuck before the Surf Center was built. While he was creating the ocean recreation program, I was teaching sailing over in Kailua. We used to keep the boats at Otani Mansion, which Myra remembers. We had that was her office, and we would go there on the weekend, pick up the boats. And this is another friend of mine who couldn't make it today. And we would teach sailing at Kailua. So that's how I got to meet Chuck. We had the tour company, which was called Hawaii As It Is. And what he was doing was juggling, working with children, but also working with tourists. You say, okay, we got this many people, we're going to go to Ali'i Kahana, or we're going to go here. We were first. There was no Paradise Cove. We were doing beach service at the 3 coves and during the day, and then in the evening we'd bring in a contractor who was cooking the food and some entertainment. And it eventually turned into Paradise Cove. But Chuck was always thinking about how to get, make some extra money. Now, she mentioned about the old rusty van. The old rusty van came from the military. We needed some things to, that particular blue van was an extended van, and it was the storage van. And where it came from is military auction. I would go to the military surplus auctions and bid on vans. I kind of have a mechanical background, so I could look and say, oh, this one I think we can work with this one. So we had like 3 or 4 vans. So we're running beach services around the island. At the Paradise Cove, where the site was, we'd have several hundred people during the day, and of course, we only had a van full of equipment. We can't have 500, 300 people snorkeling. We don't have 300 snorkeling. So I had to put the system in to rotate people around. Oh, you're going to do this for this many minutes, over here, over here, over here. And then around 1, 2 o'clock, then the cocktails came out. And then around 4 o'clock, then we had 20 more buses come in. So we were handling hundreds of people. And meanwhile, Chuck's wheeling and dealing with the city and county. He had an in with the director of the recreation department, young Suk Ko, and there was an executive assistant, both appointees by Mayor Fossey. So he had kind of a direct door into Mayor Fossey's office to sell the ocean recreation program. And I think one of his shining moments was when he got the funding for the surf center. And that was to be the first, and there were supposed to be 5 more ocean recreation buildings around the island. But one time he calls me up, he says, I need some help moving a canoe. And I went, oh, okay. And then I thought, we're going to go pick up the canoe, put it on the trailer, and go drive it someplace. No, the canoe is a Ali'i Kahana, and we're going to sail it to Haleiwa. That's something, a lifetime experience I'll never forget with Chuck. And Chuck's, I never sailed a Polynesian rig, but I was with Chuck, and he said, oh, don't worry. Okay. So, I learned how to do that, but again, it's a lifetime experience I'll never forget. But anyway, I can't think of any other things to say. I know there's other people who want to speak, so thank you very much. But I remember I have great memories of Chuck.
Guys, that's the famous first words. The famous first words for any weekend is, hey, guys, I need help moving a canoe.
I was out surfing mango. Anyway, I just want to say thank you for everybody that I get to see today. Tom and Alan and everybody, Myra. I got to work at the Surf Center back in high school. We would look forward to the Summer Fun program. And I was one of the first workers for the junior kids. And so Tom and everybody were my seniors. And just had so much fun down there. And I realized that it was all in regards to Mr. Shipman. He was the one that got it started. So all the kids had a great time. Good to see everybody. Thank you.
So I just want to share something really, really quick. It's about my big screen debut on the movie Godzilla. Dad goes, hey, we're going to go. I rented out my canoes. It's going to be for the weekend. We're going to take the canoes down. You're going to get a chance to sail the canoes. You're going to be on that. And I'm thinking, oh, this is my chance. I'm going to be on Baywatch. So I go, I oil up my biceps, I make sure that David, we need the real oily suntan lotion. So I'm suntanned up. I'm like looking good. I got my red surf shorts on. I'm standing by the canoe. His whole thing is, okay, go move the canoe into the water. Oh, okay, we'll move the canoe in the water. So he's like, okay, we're gonna move it into the water. But I'm like, but that's mud. Yeah. They want a shot coming off the pier. And you're gonna stand in the water. But I'm like, but that's mud. And I'm all greased up to be on camera. He's like, yeah, you're an extra. You're gonna be an extra. This is your chance, your big chance. So I'm standing next to the canoe. An hour goes by. Okay, several hours go by. Nothing's happening. I'm standing next to a canoe. Finally, it's sweltering hot. It's blistering. We're standing in mud, in the mud flats of Waikane, holding the canoe, making sure it doesn't go back and forth, full of mud. Okay? Matthew Broderick comes down, and Matthew Broderick's walking across the pier, and they're shooting us, and we're coming. Of course, I stand up straight, make big body. I watched the movie. 2 seconds of me right here, and there's David in the background right there. So I'm holding the canoe right here like this. Tyler's right there, and we were in the movie Godzilla. The question is, where was Dad? No, I don't know, actually remember seeing him after he dropped us off. We were in charge for the whole day. Okay, come to the stage, Pat Kelly.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out today for Chuck. Awesome, one of the most awesome people I have ever come across in my lifetime, and very thankful for all good things that he's done for me and my kid and all the kids and everybody on the North Shore. Can be thankful for Chuck for what everybody was talking about, his ocean rec experiences with the Surf Center. My daughter Melanie worked there, David, Leah worked there, and all their friends worked there in the summertime. And they were saying the other day with Kent and Lee Kravitz and the gang over there at the Surf Center, that was some of the best years of their lives. Being down, hanging out at the beach, at Ali'i Beach, where every kid from the island got to come in a bus in the summertime and snorkel, swim, boogie board, go on the canoe. Later times they were windsurfing. And they got to do all this stuff right there at the Surf Center. And Chuck was responsible for getting that to happen. The Ocean Rec A-Team, Jerry, Myra, Tom, Lee Kravitz. Today we got Kerry Tarakina holding down the fort and keeping the dream alive. But I don't think, I consider them like the 5-0, the Hawaii 5-0 of Parks and Recreation, because they were like beyond regular city and county workers. Like if you wanted to get a job, if you were a kid that was surfing and you were asked, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And you know, kids would want to be, oh, I want to be an oceanographer or something that had to do with the ocean, something that would have them on the beach every day in the ocean. What better thing could you ask for than Ocean Rec, where you're running these programs and you're introducing kids and getting them to come down to the beach every day, and plus you get to surf. So anyway, I was living on the beach over here, the beach house, and one of our roommates was John Peck. And John turned out to be, I found out later, was good friends with Chuck in the early days, in the 60s, and they would come out to the North Shore, and Chuck would eventually wanted to live out here. He had his big wave experiences, and he wanted to live on the North Shore, and him and Phyllis, scored that house over at down the street over here, right across from the lifeguard tower. Which brings me up to the fact that the Shipmans were horse people. They were Paniolas back in the day, in the 70s. They weren't really Paniolas, but they had horses. My mom came out and met Phyllis and Chuck, and Chuck, I found out, was born in Brooklyn. My mom was born in Brooklyn. And I was thinking, wow. And that's where they used to have the, everybody met for the surf contest. The Aikau family was there, and they'd always meet over there. And here I am, Hallie from the mainland, and I'm new to this whole scene and everything, and I see everybody meeting over there at Chuck's house, and it was up on stilts, and I was going, wow, these guys they're building like a contest area where they can see the ocean and they can judge the contest and everything. I was going, wow, this is like the epicenter of surfing in the world and everything. And then I get to go over there and meet Chuck, and he goes, I got some work. And first thing he had me doing was getting out there in the corral and shoveling up horse crap and putting and then I had to grub it and dig up all this California grass, and you know, it was pretty steady work. I didn't get paid a lot. It was like $2 an hour or whatever, but hey, it was enough.
Wait, you got paid?
This guy's connected. Not only was he connected with the government and the city and county, like he was, like I said, 5-0. He was up there at the top of the food chain. You know, he got into his stuff. He got into windsurfing. He wasn't the top guy. Chuck wasn't, you know, like the Robbie Nash or the Kai Lenny, but he was really enthusiastic, and he got out there and did it. And you know, he participated, and he was passionate about it, and he really got into it. I got so many stories, and one of the best ones though is Chuck's 11.6 Hobie Brewer. To you surfers out there, this board was iconic. It was a you know, like a Hobie, you know, one of the top brands at the time. It was shaped by Dick Brewer. It was made for Buzzy Trent. And Chuck had this board hanging up in the garage, and he had this Hobie Brewer. And that was his, you know, top of the line board that he had. You know. But anyway, you know, I still love Phyllis and Chuck and the kids, and the memory of all the good times that we had back then, and all the, you know, the fact I'm so lucky that I got to participate in the Chuck Shipman Odyssey. So, thank you.
It's the time of the presentation where we have an open mic.
Thank you. How's everybody? It's Sheriff Foss from Country Surfboards. My family, my kids, grew up with Chuck's kids, and it was a pleasure to be associated with a great family. Back to Pat's story about the brewer. This was a really rare and valuable board, and there was only 70 made in existence, and each one was tracked. Chuck had a very special one. But thinking out of the box, as Pat said, he evolved into windsurfing, and Randy Rarick, I work for, said, go over there and get that board. We're going to restore it and make a lot of money from it. So I go over there and go, hey Chuck, have you got that board? He goes, yeah, it's back in the shed. So we go back in the shed and we pull it out, and I was amazed. It was original Dick Brewer Hobie, worth $1 zillion. But what Chuck had done was he carved holes in it to put windsurfing foot straps in it. Big giant holes all down the board. Oh my God, what have you done? You know, this is a relic. This is a museum piece. You know, how could you? You know, but to Chuck, that was just an extension of take something we could use and use it for something else. You know, that's how his mind worked. We did eventually fill in the holes and put some color over it and sell the board successfully. But, you know, this was Chuck. And I was very happy to be associated with him over the years. I worked on the canoes. He had sailing canoes. He had surfing canoes, joke big stuff. And I was the guy who sprayed them and fixed them up. And then he taught me how to tie the yakos, and I helped build the floats. So we floated out by Tammyland, anchors, and you could tie off the yakos and cure them and make the plywood, the wood for the yakos soft so it would bend into certain shapes, just like the Hawaiians did. This was Chuck. You know, he didn't do any shortcuts. He did it authentically, and I was privileged to learn, you know, how to do the right knots, how to do this correctly. One time we went over to Kahana Bay on a project, and late in the afternoon, we dropped the boards off. There was all these Hawaiian guys from Polynesian Cultural Center, all decked out in authentic attire, and it was late in the afternoon. Going, what the heck is going on? And they said, okay, you're done, get out of here. So I dropped the canoes off and went away. Several months later, I'm at the Waikiki No. 2 Theater, and it was a big deal. They had palm trees on the side of the theater and all. And it was the beginning of a famous movie. And comes to preliminary, for the theater, and it was a film showing these guys paddling out Kahana Bay with these canoes. And that was us. Now, we didn't know what the heck it was for, but Chuck got us involved with this promotion for the theater and the Hawaiians, and I was privileged to be part of it. You know, and all that kind of kept on going on, and Chuck had these great ideas, and he taught me so much stuff. I'm very thankful and be associated with the kids, and it was part of my life I'll never forget. Thank you.
One of the things Chuck and I did with Phyllis and my wife was at nighttime, we slept on the beach a couple times at night. It was under the stars. It was always a lot of fun, but one night we took out, he has a silver platter and these red crystal glasses. Like he got it from his family. He was out in the ocean, watching sunset from the ocean, and Chuck comes out with this tray of 4 red glasses filled with some kind of alcohol. I don't remember the alcohol, but it's alcohol. And we're sitting there, just nonchalantly brings this thing into the ocean. We're seeing the ocean at sunset, and we're having cocktails on this tray with the red glasses. And I couldn't believe my eyes. And it happened over and over again. It wasn't just a one-time event. It was like sort of a part of our history, you know? And I love that about it. It's just really crazy. And I live with crazy people. It is crazy.
Morning, everybody. My name is Mark Cunningham. Punahou released me in 1974 for good behavior. And junior or senior year, I was able to enter a couple of body surfing contests thanks to Chuck Shipman and Myra Aikau and Jerry Vasconcelos. And they had one of the first contests at Pipeline, and it was body surfing, it was handboarding, it was paddleboarding, and they even had air mats. They organized contests at Makapu also, and I did well. It gave me a sense of identity, and so I'll forever be thankful to Chuck and Ocean Safety Ohana and Alan Hum. So good to see you and the crew, and Aloha Lee Kravitz, and you know, you saw Carrie Terrakina, like Pat said, carrying the torch on for the Ocean Safety Program. Anyway, later on in my lifeguard career, when I was working at our headquarters, I helped found the junior lifeguard program for the city and county. And thank goodness to Myra. Myra was right there for me, helping me with guidance and equipment in those early years. And so the junior guard program that's statewide now would not have happened without the Ocean Safety Program, Aikau and Chuck Shipman. So big mahalo for that. I'd also like to thank the Shipman Ohana for years and years of letting the lifeguards keep their gear at the house, our signs, our rescue boards, first aid kits, and more importantly, the hose. That was the shower for years and years. And but sincere mahalo to the Shipman Ohana for being so good to the lifeguards and ocean safety. Thank you.
I got one more story. I got a million of them, but this one is the classic. So, like Leah said, we often went into the forest, deep in the forest, to go pick how. Yeah, we want the long, tough howl logs to make sails. To make the masts for the sails. And so we went on a Saturday, and we go and we pick a couple logs, we throw them in the back of the truck, and he's like, okay, we go down to Kahana, and we're gonna go down there, we're checking them all out, and then we come back, and he goes, you know, we need two more logs, just like this, about this, it'll be this, and get them this long, and you wanna cut them, and bring them back. So he sends me and Tayo to go down. So we're at Kahana Valley, and of course we have the chainsaw that sometimes worked, sometimes didn't work. We were pulling on it, and he's like, okay. We go and we cut this log down, and we're here. We're putting it in. We're about to put it in the back of the truck, and here comes DLNR, right there, and he stops us, and he's like, "Do you guys have a permit?" Like, no, we know Chuck Shipman. Chuck, you know Chuck Shipman? Guys, I don't know who that. But you're in a nature conservancy zone right here in Kahana Valley. I'm like, Tyler's eyes are like, yeah. My eyes are big. He's like, okay, I gotta, you know what? Because you guys cut down the tree, I gotta take down your guys' names. So do you have any ID? I'm like, yeah, I got my Punahou cafeteria card right here. Yeah, this is my name right here. Give the guy my card. He's like, okay, I'll let you guys off this time, but no more cutting any of the trees in Kahana Valley.
One time appeared at his house about 3 or 4 Micronesian canoes from Satawat, from Kapinga Marangil. That's where they all come from. And right away, we say, hey, this is different, but these canoes had a kind of a V-bottom. And what's peculiar about it is the leeward side of the canoe is flat. So it digs into the water, it acts like a keel. Anyway, that was new to us. And then Chuck was telling us, these canoes do is not like the Western boats that you tack. This canoe doesn't tack, you go zigzag. What you do is that the arm side is always to windward. Always. So when you want to attack, you change the sail from that side to the other side. The canoe is symmetrical. Anyway, that was so new to us, man. Chuck knew about it. Anyway, and this is the story here. I see the canoe was long and was beautiful. Oh man, I can tell it's a fast canoe. And there was a race here from here to Ormeo to Ali'i, I can't remember. And the canoe was there, and then okay, we're going to sail this one. And the problem is we were not familiar with it. I said, we never sail this canoe, man. Yeah, but it's fast. And I said, this guy went a bit far. You can tell it was a fast canoe. Anyway, we put him in the water, right there by the lifeguard station. And you know how the wind is going this way. And this particular canoe, as I said, you don't tack, you just... Anyway, the race starts, and we were going about that direction. He said, well, I mean, it's that way. I know, but you gotta do the stuff. Anyway, the problem is, the canoe was so fast that she would dig into the swells. So the yak would start catching water. See the water going in the canoe. So our race lasted maybe 100 yards and we sunk. That was for lack of preparation.
I forgot to mention that, I don't know if anybody else mentioned this, but Chuck was also the contest director for the Duke contest and one of the originators of that contest, but definitely the driving force for the few years that thing existed. And I don't know why the Duke contest ended, but that was better than any other contest at the time. That was equivalent of the Eddie Aikau big wave contest that we have now. People from all over the world would come to surf in the Duke contest. Just thought I'd point that out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan Kopp, a friend of Chuck for many, many years. And this story is probably a typical one. So here's a big barbecue at Maui Kahana, and it's got the double hull canoe. And he says, oh, why don't you go out with me to Goats Island? Because it's really not that close by, and you'll enjoy it out there. Well, why not? So he drops us off on Goats Island, but he doesn't really ever come back to get us. So we walk back. It was lucky it was low tide, swim and walk back. And he was busy doing something else, involved with something else, very involved. And you know that we might have been upset. So that we had very good fun. And then he took us one time up Ali'i River. And that was more tame. And he came back and was saying, so that was good. The other one, I'm lucky to be here.
Hi. I'm James Jones. Chuck Shipman played a very big part in my life. And I was involved in so many of the adventures that everyone else has been describing, and all I can say is I agree with everything that everyone has said and more. And to me, Chuck was, I don't know if a lot of people regard him as such or even know, he was a highly intellectual person. He had an incredibly strong mind. And some of the words that would describe him, of course, are visionary. And in my opinion, he was an influencer before there was such a thing as social media and everybody knew what an influencer was. And he was an expediter. He had, and I think that was maybe his greatest gift, is that he was able to make things happen. That's what an expediter does. An expediter brings together the right people and gives them the guidance. And most of all, what he did for all of us here, as we've all said, he gave us the opportunity to accomplish things. And for many of us, these things were among our greatest accomplishments. He had the ability to provide people the opportunity to be their best self and to help others. And I think, like I say, this was his gift, because these were the things that were his goals in life. He wanted to achieve and to be his best self, and most of all, to help others to do the same. And he had the gift to do that, to bring together people to achieve things. He was generous, caring, loving, and happy. And he had a great life. And he influenced so many of the professions or vocations or activities that he sought or followed, actually led, because like Leah describes it as being on the cutting edge of critical thought and development in those fields of endeavor, and those fields that he influenced and led the way into the future were, of course, the Parks and Recreations, Ocean Recreations Department of City and County in Honolulu. And he influenced and expedited the creation of professional surfing. Before the Duke Classic, there was no professional surfing. That was the foundation, everything that ensued. And Chuck was the guiding force. The city and county lifeguards, as so many of you have shared with us, developed during the years that Chuck was helping that to happen. Who was it that said that he had an in to the Parks Department and to Mayor Fosse's ear, and he helped make a lot of the things happen. The Polynesian Voyaging Society, Chuck was way ahead of the curve on that. I may be mistaken, but I think it was Chuck that brought Maupila to Hawaii, and the Hokulea ensued from that collaboration. He brought people together, and he provided guidance and ideas and vision and made it happen. He was deeply interested in caring about those things, but he also had intellectual pursuits that were at the cutting edge of developmental thinking in their field. He invented the vacation rental market, and he and his friend, Gary Chang?
Carl Chang.
Carl Chang. Where are you, Carl? Carl Chang. Carl Chang and Chuck Shipman invented the software that became what is today Airbnb. Carl Chang prior to that.
He did it himself without that much help.
Carl is giving Chuck the credit for that. Now, Carl, in case you don't know, invented Verifone, which is, you know, when you go and pay for something with your credit card and they swipe your card, that little box. I'm giving you credit, Brian. You were the man that made Verifone happen. You were the Chuck Shipman of it. He also, when I was a professional surfer, Chuck gave me the opportunity and influenced me and expedited my surfing career through his association with the Duke Kahanamoku Surfing Classic. I competed in the Duke, I'm pretty sure, more than any other competitor. I competed 14 years in a row until the Duke stopped in 1984. And during that time, one of the first things that Chuck did for me was he invited me to work with the people in the Ocean Recreation Department, Parks and Recreations. And the first year I won the contest that summer, me and Reno Avalera, Jerry Vasconcelos, the Aikau family, we went to the communities all around the islands. We went to Wamanalo, we went to Nanakuli, we went to Kololo House, and all the, I don't know if you're allowed to categorize things this way, the underprivileged areas of the island, and especially the Hawaiian homelands, the native Hawaiian communities, the indigenous people. And we tried to provide influence and opportunity for those kids to pursue their dreams and to achieve and be their best self in those fields which might have been the only opportunity for many of those kids. One of those kids was in the 8th grade when we went to Wamanalo. His name was Michael Ho, and there were a lot of other kids that benefited from those programs. But Chuck had another side of his life when I had really much, after the Duke ended in 1984, I pretty much pursued other vocations. And in the early 90s, Chuck provided me probably the greatest opportunity of my life when he offered to mentor me in obtaining my appraisal license. And I went on to practice appraisal for 27 years, and it made all the difference in my life. I'd probably be in a terrible place now if Chuck had not given me that opportunity. And of course, I'm not giving him all the credit. I had to do all the work. And many of these jobs and achievements that all of us have mentioned today, that was Chuck's gift. He didn't do all the work. He gave you the opportunity and the guidance and the influence to do the job. And I worked my ass off as an appraiser for 27 years. I almost killed myself from hard work. But it was Chuck that gave me the opportunity. So, as Alan Sitt mentioned, Chuck, he was a brilliant guy. And Carl, you know this, Alan said he could have been a multimillionaire. In his lifetime, Chuck earned and created many millions of dollars in value. But he was generous. And he also liked to spend money, too. But that was not his purpose. Making money was not his purpose. It was his vision and to influence and expedite other people and thereby accomplish his goals through other people. Brilliant strategy. And so I think in the 60s, people would have said, that kind of a life, the word we used was righteous. But, excuse me, since the Hawaiian Renaissance in the mid-70s, which he also was a big part of through the people that he influenced, many of whom are here today, another word came into the local lexicon. And that word is pono. And so I think that's about as far as I can get. All I can say is Chuck's life was pono. Thank you.
And with that said, I'd like to call to the stage Kumu Olela Hawaii, no ke kulanui kaiulu o ko'olau, Kioki Faria, to do the pule for us and to give us some wisdom on our way. Kioki.
Let's bow our heads and hold malu kākou. E ku'u ho ite o kalani nui a kia, ko moana nui a kia, Hawaii nui a kia. E no mākou na hoa, a me ka ohana o Papa Shipman. Ke ho'onani a mirirani aku no ia oe, no ko mālama kia I ana mai, a Papa Shipman, I loko ki umaula makai ki lo ihi. Iaia e ke ehi ana I ko hopo ka ane mālau o kanolo. Mahalo ia oe no ko malama mai. Ke noi ha'a ani mākou ia oe ki a kua e ko o maru mai I ka ohana, a me nā hoa I a kua mai, I kahi ana I ko o puna na ko o huai. E koho iwala ko mākou ho. E olo e aino iaia e ku ho mai I kona wai no ho kahi la. E lau na ho me kona ohana, a me kona maupoa. A leila, e ko I no oia maha ki ala ho I ori. Oia I hana ko mākou leo pule a noi a oe. E hiki ako oia I leila, e pula mano ia, e hiki no ia, e pula mano ia. A pe e pune ka po e koi ni, ka po e ube a kani kau nona, no Papa Shipman. Mahalo ia oe no na mea pauro. Ke noi ha'a ni mākou ia oe, I mo mea pauro makainoa, kau kiki hiwa hiwa o Yesu Christo. Amen. Mahalo.
For those of you who are able, willing, we're going to go kind of meet by the lifeguard tower in front of there, and we'll paddle out from that point.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
I did not have time to stay for Chuck Shipman's paddle out at sunset across the street from the family home. Instead, I will leave you portions of some of Chuck's writings. He was a prolific historian and writer when it came to the ocean activities that really drove his passions in life. Please take the time to read these clips, and if necessary, pause the video for each clip. You may also do your own research into Charles Shipman or Chuck Shipman in the Legendary Surfers Facebook group.